Income flip. Guess what? Today we've got Maura McGraw from Fairhope, Alabama. Welcome, Maura.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you here. And I was giving you a little bit of context about what the income flip's all about. It's where we help people take their active income and convert it to passive income, hence the income flip, flip your income. And, as I was deep diving a little bit on your background as an entrepreneur, I love it when I come across people that come out of the military, right? And I see that you served. And so my first question for you is, how the heck did you get into real estate investing? Like you did your undergrad what GW, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then you did you completed your grad degree at Georgetown. So you're a native of Washington D.C. But so I'm curious about how you ended up getting into real estate investing, and you were doing your schooling here in the D.C. area, and then you went to Fairhope, Alabama, or maybe that's where you're from originally. So bring me up to speed, right?
Okay. Great question. Let me try to answer this as concisely as possible. Okay.
Okay.
So I actually, believe it or not, I grew up in California. I went to college in DC. Immediately after graduating, I did 10 years in the Marine Corps. And as I was approaching my kind of the halfway mark of my military service, my husband, by the way, was also an active duty Marine. So we were kind of at that big decision point that a lot of people come to in the military where you have to decide, okay, am I going all in? Am I going to do my 20-year career in the military, or do I need to make a change? So that's where I was at. And I am so lucky that my father and stepmother are real estate investors and developers. And as a kid up till now, I got to see them grow their investment and development company over time. And now they have just an amazing company. They do the craziest high-end homes. They've built a home for Adam Levine. They have apartment
Oh,
complexes
wow.
all over. They have truly an empire. So I kind of watched from the sidelines over the years of them build up this nice business. And so when I was contemplating how to transition out of the Marine Corps, I knew that I really wanted a career that would give me the freedom and flexibility to start a family and kind of be the mom that I wanted to be, but also still be able to bring in income, create generational wealth, and still have professional fulfillment. And it's hard to find that. I mean, now after COVID, there is a little bit more flexibility in the workplace, but at the time, that wasn't the case. And real estate, I think, is really one of those fields that does provide this higher level of flexibility for people, that is really uncommon across most industries. So luckily, because I'd had the example of my parents, I did kind of know a little bit about real estate. So I just decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. If I'm going to leave this badass job in the Marine Corps, I'm not going to be able to go work for someone else. I'm going to have to do my own thing. So I did immediately go to graduate school. My graduate degree is actually in real estate with a concentration in global real estate and finance, which a lot, there's not,
Wow.
most
Yeah,
people
there's
don't
not.
even know that that's a thing.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
cool.
immediately did that. And then my father obviously has been a mentor to me in my career, but he's not like a hold your hand, explain things to you type of mentor. He's a throw you into the fire type of mentor. So when I was in my second semester, I wrote my business plan for my company, and he's like, "Hey, I have this new construction project in Birmingham, Alabama. I want you to go manage the project for me." And this was, I mean, I knew nothing. Everything I knew was you know,
Academic.
theoretical,
Yeah.
academic, but I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I went to Birmingham, didn't know anybody. I met, the general contractor, and I got totally thrown into the fire. Had to learn everything. It was super overwhelming. I made a million mistakes on that project. We We ended up losing $30,000, went way over time. I made every mistake in the book on that first project, but it was truly like,
Yeah, you learn everything. Yeah, that's how you actually learned, right?
It was a true education, yes, in how to do it. And of course, once you're like in a project, then you have to make all the connections with everybody in the market, and that's how it started. That was literally my first project, and then from there, we went on to, even as that one was finishing out, we started our next 2 flips. I had to raise private investment for those, and that's how I found my business partner, and the story kind of goes on from there. But that's how I initially got into real estate. That was in 2018, so about 6.5 years ago.
Okay. So I have a lot of questions, right? So what kind of project was that first project? What was it?
It was just a new construction single family home.
Okay, so single family home, new construction, building it for a client, like building it for a private client?
No, just a spec home.
Spec home.
Built to put on the market.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So much learning in a spec home, right?
Oh my God. Yes.
So from the ground up.
Yes.
Like, okay.
Yes.
Wow.
We bought, literally, he bought the land, and then it was up to us to.
Okay. Second question. Had he invested in Birmingham before? Is this a place? Okay. So he
had several properties there. I knew about the market from like an academic standpoint, like Birmingham, still now, and at the time it is kind of a known investor market. The market, to this day, like has a reputation for the properties cash flowing really well. It's a great place for a lot of out-of-state investors. So I knew about it, and it was like a market I was considering for my business, but then that's what pushed me over the edge to like make the move to Alabama was.
Oh, well, that's okay. Well, that's a big deal. You had to like move to Alabama to do this project. Okay.
Yes.
And did you move? And you and your husband moved, I would imagine.
So eventually, yes. There was a few years where I was like traveling back and forth a lot between a few different places. So I was still finishing my graduate degree at Georgetown, traveling back and forth to Birmingham all the time. And then my husband went and did his MBA at Dartmouth. So then I was like constantly traveling between New Hampshire and Birmingham. But finally, we permanently made the move in 2020.
Well, now, was that unusual, or was that like standard fare for the fact that you were in the military? Maybe both of you were traveling when you were in the military, or were you guys stationed in the same places? Or
well, yes, we were very used to traveling, and I think in the 10 years we moved 10 times during the 10 years that we were in the military. So we're very used to moving.
But you moved together?
No.
Oh, well, you didn't move. Okay.
For half of the time, yes, but for our first tours, when we were both lieutenants, we were stationed in different countries for 3 years. So
that was my point, right? My point is like you were used to this fact of like, okay, well, I'm going to go to Birmingham, Alabama. I'm going to do my tour duty. I'm building my first spec house. I'll travel back and forth. We'll see each other on the weekends. Yeah, yes. I get it. Okay.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so you guys lost money on that first project.
Yes.
But that was a $30,000 education.
Yes.
It gave you the confidence and the network to springboard from there.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So then what type of business did you decide to pursue? Because the world of real estate investing is so big, right?
Yes.
There's so many things that you could do. So what did you decide? And I would say that you're still early in your career. Like you're only 6-7 years in. Like that might even change. But having a mentor, having your dad and your mom, like having built something, it's probably given you some perspective about what you want to build. So I'm curious.
Okay. So my original business plan, which is essentially what we've executed for the past 6.5 years, was to flip houses and build a rental portfolio. And the basic idea, which many people have done, is to flip houses and reinvest some of the profits and over time build a rental portfolio, which I'm so happy to say that we've done that. At this point, I've flipped over 100 houses, and we have a rental portfolio of 55 properties.
Awesome.
Now,
Great
in the
job.
past couple of things, yeah, it's been a, of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing,
No, 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 no,
but
no. We'll unpack that. But you know what I tell everybody, when you're on this journey, you need to build a cash machine as you're building your wealth machine, right? Your cash machine is this fixing and flipping, or maybe it's being an agent, or maybe it's, some kind of form of active income. And then you got to be buying these assets along the way. And there's so many people that actually focus on just fixing and flipping, and then they don't build a portfolio. And then they wake up 10 years later and they're like, I'm tired.
yeah.
Right. So good for you.
And I'm so glad, because even just in, the 6.5 years, we've had a bunch of stuff happen, Luckily I was kind of had the recession, the 2008 recession was definitely still like present in my mind. So we were like, we want to build a business that's going to be recession resistant, which, so that rental portfolio is super key, because when the market gets tough, flipping gets tough. And even now we're at just a point in the market cycle where flipping is tough. But and COVID was another very interesting time, but at every time where the market makes it a little bit tougher to flip, or your margins are smaller, those times have been nicely counterbalanced with the rental portfolio. Our rental portfolio has always done really well, even throughout COVID, or, now with, the real estate market's still a little crazy right now. That rental portfolio has been clutch.
Fantastic. So you're 6 years into this journey. Like you said, it probably wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. So let's unpack maybe some of those lessons learned on that journey.
There are so many. Okay, well, you learned about my first big lesson learned, and there was so much learned on that first lesson, but I'm grateful for it because it made me so cautious going into all my future projects. The next several projects went relatively smoothly because I had learned so many things about the importance of, the first thing I learned in that I did incorrectly on my first project was my market research. And I, put too high end of finishes, just like blew my budget. And I should have done a lot better market research, not just from like the higher analytical standpoint, but I should have gone and walked through a lot of houses in the neighborhood, realized what level of finish all of them were at, and done something similar. So the importance of market research, the importance of having an accurate construction budget. This is something that most flippers have to kind of learn as they go. And of course, I learned that the hard way, but because I had messed it up on my first project, I ended up getting it right for the next several projects. Having the right business partner is a really important lesson that I had to learn. My first business partner was actually the general contractor that worked with me on that first project. He is a great guy, but it turns out we were not good business partners. And thank God for Aziz Shanara, who is my business partner now. He's the guy that privately funded our first 2 flips, and he's been my amazing business partner for over 6 years now. And he's like an amazing business partner. He's good at a ton of the things that I'm not good at. Together, we really bring like complementary skill sets to the table. And I think the really important thing is we have shared values and vision, which was what was missing with my first business partner. He was a great guy and we had complementary skill sets, but we didn't have like the shared values and vision for the company. And I think that's what ultimately caused it to not work out.
Sure. And
so those are some of the lessons I learned early on. We then, as we started to scale our business and our rental portfolio, we actually, started a property management company with our broker, another business partner who's a broker, and did that for 3 years. And that was a wild ride. There were so many lessons learned just from doing that. But let me pause for a second
how many
far you want to go into property management.
How many properties do you have under management right now?
So from 2019 when we started the company to 2022, we went from 0 to 600.
Oh
in
my
3 years.
goodness.
So it
Wow.
was insane. It was insane. It was what everybody what you hear about as an entrepreneur of scaling too quickly. But when you're new in that journey, you're always like, how, what a good problem to have, like scaling too quickly. Well, no. We
No,
learn
it's
we
it's an
learned.
alligator. It's an alligator. No,
Yeah.
my wife and I, let me see. When did we start ours? We started one in 2006, and then we sold it in 2011.
Okay.
And then I started another one a couple years ago, but differently than how I had originally started. But we also, in the first 2 or 3 years, she had 300 units under management. And, we had no accounting background. We had no real management background. We had no business background. It was baptism by fire, right?
Yes.
And we made a lot of mistakes. We lost money. We made a lot of mistakes. Ultimately, we learned how to run a business through all of that, right?
Yes. It was.
But I can't imagine 600. So you guys have 600. You guys have 600 now?
So now we've scaled back, and I've actually exited out of that business because I was just doing too much, and I personally didn't love the lifestyle of the property management business.
Yeah.
But I learned it was certainly another great education for those 3 years of being a managing partner. So for us, we were able to hold on from 0 to 300. We were able to, it was crazy, but doable. Like, we held on, we hired people, created all the systems, we were able to hold on. Then at 300, everything started to fall apart. All of our systems, that worked to get us there, just started falling apart. Everybody on the team was just feeling stressed and overwhelmed on a daily basis. It was insane. So then right around the 300 mark, we had to just halt all growth. We had to just stop accepting any new units or any new clients. And for 3 or 6 months, we just had to go back to the drawing board and focus on rebuilding all the systems and processes so that we could actually continue to grow, which we did. And we were doing okay till about 450. And then a contact of mine approached me about taking on these 3 apartment complexes, which was 150 units. And we, our team, we were kind of on the fence, should we do this or not? It's going to be another big jump, obviously. And that we decided to go for it. In hindsight, was probably a mistake. But those apartment complexes were kind of a disaster from day one. They were in really rough parts of town where I had to carry a gun and bring my dog everywhere. I personally evicted several drug dealers, had crime, fires, floods, you name it. I dealt with it personally because I was here down. So our headquarters of our business was in Birmingham. We expanded to this part of Alabama, which is about 4 hours south. But I was the main leadership person here on the ground. So all these crazy things that were happening, it was my responsibility to deal with. And then it ended in this kind of fantastic catastrophe where one day, one of the apartment complexes had 10 pipe bursts in 24 hours. It turns out that apartment complex was plumbed with PVC that was the subject of a class action lawsuit because it was manufactured incorrectly. And oh my God. So, and it was only a few weeks into taking over management of these complexes. But basically,
so it sucked all your time, all your energy, and you're not getting paid extra for anything like that.
Oh no, it was insane. The whole bill that was I took that as okay, here's my sign from God that it's time to make a big life change here. But the whole building flooded. We had to condemn the building, get all the tenants out, re-plumb, do tons of construction on the building. that everybody was understandably just so upset, you know, because there's a housing crisis here. There's a like affordable housing shortage problem here in Mobile. So these people didn't have anywhere to go. I literally had news crews, the mayor coming to my office every day for a couple weeks. I was now like a crisis PR person on the news. I was like pregnant with my second child. It was an absolute
oh my God,
crazy disaster.
That's insane. By the way, don't you like, I think I read in your bio, don't you have like a little PR background as well, or no?
Thank God, yes. Thank God, yes. I mean, I always at George Washington, I studied political communication, and I always joked because I never used it through my 10 years in the military. I was like, I'm like one of those people that never used their degree, and that it has randomly come into use now in my
you think of like
career.
all those disaster scenarios that you were being taught in college of like how to handle like when, oh my God, that's so crazy. I remember those classes, by the way. I remember those classes.
Yes, they finally really came into play when I had to literally go on the news a few times and try to explain what was going on with this situation. It was
oh my
so
God,
crazy.
what a nightmare. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Did you just sell it? Did you give it away? Did you?
So thank God those were not like our company did not own those buildings. We were just managing them. And
no, I mean the property management business just in general.
So the property management company still exists today. It's still doing great. My old business partner Danny still runs it, and he's doing an amazing job. I just decided to take a buyout and exit.
That's great.
Out of the company.
You're like, listen, I got
like,
kids. This is I like. You probably saw that you could make your dollar per hour so much more effective in another vein, right? Like when we sold our property management business to the people that ran it for us at the ground level, and it always felt like it fed them well, but it never fed us all that much. Like we were like, how much? And we also made the mistake of doing lower income property management, which is like lots of headaches, lots of maintenance requests, no money, right?
Yes.
So there's all these things that we learned, as I'm sure you learned in that journey, right? Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool.
It was, and the biggest thing I had to like have my come to Jesus moment of, this is not why I got into real estate. I got into real estate because I wanted like a free and flexible lifestyle, not like having, I thought that I put my guns away when I left the military. Now I don't want to be having to carry a gun everywhere I go in my job anymore. I want like little lower stress. And,
lower stress. You don't want to have to get hit up all the time and followed by cameras and like, so why did you evict everybody from the building? Like, oh my God. That's all the PR. It's like the worst. Right?
Oh my God.
Just thinking about that. Okay,
for me,
so
it was like, there's no amount of, I realized I was like, there's no amount of money that's worth this. The company from a business perspective always did fairly well, and it to this day is doing well. But at a certain point I was like, there's no amount of money that's worth it to me.
Yeah, you got into this business, I imagine, because there was a certain element of freedom that you were looking for, right? Freedom of time, freedom of money, like just your 55 houses has shown you that that's a very possible thing, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll put that behind us because you're like, I just want that to be over with, right? So when you got out of the property management business, like how did you refocus yourself?
Well, luckily the whole time, I don't even know how I was doing it, but the investing and flipping business was still going. Like it was still going.
Yeah.
But it was, I think I have what a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, which is like, shiny object syndrome,
Sure. Guilty.
So it's just, it's a problem. But I mean, so everything was still going, but the investing business just, I wasn't giving it the attention it needed. And it was, luckily it was easy to just refocus on, okay, we need to get back to the basic business plan that we had from day one and just focus on that and not be trying to do a million things all the time.
Fantastic. I love that. And I assume that's what you guys are doing today.
Yes.
You guys are continuing to fix and flip and buy properties for your rental portfolio.
Yes.
What does your team look like today?
So it's myself and my business partner Aziz. We're the two owners, and then we have a general manager. We have a property manager. Um, we now have a lending or a rent-to-own line of business, which is pretty cool. So we have a manager for that program, and two assistants right now. So like a bookkeeper, finance assistant, and another assistant.
Cool.
So
So you
there's
put
seven of us.
you put your core team together, right?
Yes. And we do have obviously like not directly on the team, but our contractor teams who
Yeah, all the
and we
subs,
actually
everything.
I don't, and we do have a construction manager now that helps manage all of our construction. So
Sure.
that's
That's
been great.
natural.
Yes.
So I'm curious, what advice has your father given, your mother given, like because they built something, right? They've and so they've maybe they haven't, right? Like maybe he's like, hey, this is just go do, right? But have they given you kind of like advice along the way on how to build whatever infrastructure you're looking to build?
Yes. Well, as I said from the beginning, my dad's not a huge like hold your hand, but he does give me good advice over time. And of course, I am a little bit stubborn. So he did warn me from the beginning. I have to give him credit. When I had my original business partner, who was that first general contractor, he warned me. He's like, I don't think you should do that, but I did it anyways because I was stubborn, and he was right about that. And he'll and now the advice he's giving me right now is he wants me to move so most of our rental portfolio is single family houses. We have some duplexes and a triplex, but it's small,
Mm-hmm.
single family stuff. He
He
wants
wants you
me
to
to
go
move.
go up the food chain.
Yes, he wants me to move into apartment complexes. But as you just heard, I still like I feel that I've seen a little too much
Do you have
from
PTSD
PTSD from the
yeah.
apartment complexes. So I've been hesitant to make the jump. I think what I do think he's right. I think that it is going to be time in the next year or two to start moving a little bit into commercial to kind of scale to the next level. I haven't landed on like what asset class in commercial we should do. I get it. It does make the most sense to go into multifamily with everything we've learned, our background. I get it. That does make the most sense. But I want
Yeah.
to really look at all options before getting
Yeah.
back into that world.
Well, what's interesting is, I learned in the world of, right, like this could sound very obvious when I say it out loud, but there are different asset classes, or there's different markets, right? Like you've got your war zones, you've got your, D product, your C product, right? Your B product, your A product, and they pull different types of tenants. And so like maybe the apartment building that you want to buy is more of an A or B asset class, right? Versus maybe the one that you were managing, which doesn't sound like it was an A or B asset class,
No.
which gave you some PTSD,
Yes.
right? And you were like, I don't know if I ever want to do that again. And the challenge for anybody listening is that on paper, when you look at some of those asset classes on paper, they look so good. Like, oh, I can make so much money from this asset because the cash flow looks great. But then because of the tenant turnover, because of just where it is and the history of that building draws a certain type of clientele, it makes it very difficult. You could transition those buildings, but they're tough to transition, right?
They're really
and
tough.
and really and they're sometimes in parts of the market where growth just hasn't been experienced because that area is being held down because of crime or drugs or whatever it is, right? So maybe multifamily is the way. It's just looking for
Higher end, yes.
the higher end of the market, right?
Yes.
And on paper, they don't look as great, but they're better on your stress, better on your pocketbook. Like
Yes.
everything is better, right?
Yes. Yes. I think you're probably very right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's still something I'm like it's something I kind of am mulling in the back of my mind, like what is the right move here? It probably is that, that is my dad's advice. I will say that is my dad's advice. But it's been great. I've been looking at all sorts of different things
I was going to ask you, what else? Are you looking at storage? Are you looking? Yeah, I would say the opposite. Right?
Yes.
You're like, okay, listen, no tenants, no toilets, no what? Yeah, I'm going the opposite.
Yes, I'm like, of course, storage, like triple net lease stuff, you know, like, but you know, everything, that's the thing. No asset class is perfect. They all have their challenges. Of course, commercial real estate is getting beat up as a whole, especially retail right now. So, of course, a triple net lease sounds great as the landlord, but it's like all theoretical until you
have a global pandemic and nobody's paying you.
Yes, exactly. So I even I did an interview yesterday with a guy that specializes in land banking. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily the right play for me, but it was still very cool to just learn about all the different.
What about in your neck of the woods? You know, contract for deeds, like owner financing in your neck. Like, I would imagine that, like, I started off buying in this little town that's 2 hours away from Washington, D.C. And it was one of these towns where the values of those properties have never increased. They have not increased. It's a dying town, right? But there was one person that was making a lot of money in that town, and he owner financed everybody. He was like a subprime lender for that market. And he would buy properties at auction, and then what he would do is he would just wrap them and sell the note to this person that's looking to get qualified at like 10%, and it was equivalent to rent, right?
Yes.
And the guy loved
what we've started doing.
It's so good.
That's what we've started doing. We've done about 20 of those so far.
Yeah, like you're not a landlord.
Yes, honestly, this is our fastest growing line of business, and it's our highest, on average, our highest ROI line of business. And it's been great. It's like probably one of the things I'm most excited about right now. And the thing is, it happened so naturally. We didn't even set out to do this. It just happened because a lot of our contractor crews in Birmingham were Hispanic, and they, you know, a couple of them approached us a couple of years ago because they were making great money, doing great business. They're great people, but they couldn't qualify for a traditional mortgage. So they came to us and asked them if we could help them buy a house. And we're like, yes. So we just figured out how to make it work with them. And literally that's how this line of business has grown. Just like
there is so much opportunity right there, right? Like, you know, I have a portfolio of properties where my clients are all Hispanic. They've been in those properties for 15, 17 years, right? They're amazing. And we're in a market where it's super expensive, right? Like some of these assets that I bought during the 2008 crisis. We bought for like $110.
Great.
Today they're like, what's that?
That's great that you bought those during 2008.
Oh yeah, 2008. Like we bought them. You know, the mistake is we didn't buy more, right? But we bought a small little portfolio, and they're all like 450, 475 now. So we can't even make those numbers work though to own or finance somebody. But in some of these other submarkets, like possibly Birmingham, Alabama, or Cumberland, Maryland, or Front Royal, could even be like Virginia. That strategy works super well. Like, especially when you find the niche and you're like, hey, this works. Like, let's just do more of what works.
Yes.
Right? That's cool. And anything is going to seem so much easier than the property management stuff. That's like, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the best. I have to, it's such a great line of business.
Well, you're a bank.
Yes, exactly. You're a bank. So it's like all the benefits of rental property, all the benefits, including the tax benefits, but you don't have to deal with any of the maintenance. These people are great. They're like, you know, tenant owners. They're great. They take care. A lot of them improve the properties. I really can't say enough good things about it.
How are you structuring? Are you structuring them as lease options, or are you doing contract for deeds?
We do contract for deeds. So
Okay.
I know a lot of people do lease options. How we do it is a little bit different than how some people do it. But basically, all of our clients are coming into the contract with the intention that they are going to buy. They're wanting to buy the house, and they even put down a little down payment. Our company is the one that actually buys the house. We structure a note with the client, and it's depending on their situation. Usually they're 10 or 15-year notes. We have had people that wanted them shorter. We just work out with them their financial situation. We go through a little amortization chart, figure out the note that works for them, and then at the end of the note, we transfer the deed over to them, and that's essentially how we do it.
Love it. You're the bank. Okay, so let's go through just like a typical bread and butter, like, little deal, so I understand the numbers and our listeners can hear the numbers, right? So you buy it for what?
Okay, so I would say on average, we're buying for around the $100,000 range.
Okay.
And so then we have a good bank relationship with our lender. So our lenders will finance for it to us at whatever the interest rate is at the time. Like now it's in the sixes, which is not great. So then we turn around and we sell the property. We add something to it. So if we buy it for 100, maybe we're selling it for 120 or 140. They put a little down payment. We try to get like close to 5 or 10% down. And then we structure the note kind of just how I talked about. We have to charge a few percentage points above whatever the APR is. So now it's high, it's in like the 8 to 10% range. Usually they're 10 to 15 year deals, and then we transfer the deed at the end, and that whole time we're making rent. So they cash flow at least a few, like probably on average $300 to $400 a month each.
I interviewed this guy on my podcast, and he calls it the slow flip. This is exactly what he does. He calls it the slow flip, and he loves it. And there's parts around the US that are perfect to make this work. Like, you're not going to be able to make this work in Washington, like in the DC metro area, or California, like Orange County, California. Like, you're not going to make it work. But in Birmingham and in places, Cumberland, Maryland is another one. I just think of it. Like, there's places that it will work for sure.
It has been great.
Okay. So I noticed, just pivoting, you probably, as is, I think, people that love to learn and are passionate about the business we're in, you also help other real estate entrepreneurs get into this game, right? Probably because, like me, you were like, shit, I made so many mistakes. If I could just help my fellow entrepreneur cut through all the mess, maybe I could shave 5 years off their life.
Yes, and I'm sure this has happened to you. Once you actually have been doing it for a little while and people see what you're doing, they ask you people were asking me the same questions all the time about how to get started. And at first I would, I'd take these calls, but it's not a nice, simple answer about, it's hard to tell someone in 10 minutes how to get started in real estate investing, because everybody's situation is different. And it just got to the point where
they enter into the world with different skills.
Yes, exactly. Right? Different skills, different financial situation,
different thinking.
Yes. So there's not a perfect, I don't think there's a perfect one size fits all. And so I would take these calls whenever I could, but then it just got to the point where I couldn't take all these calls and questions and answer them well enough. And of course, after getting the same questions so many times, I was like, I just need to create like a good overall answer. Like, if I had to go back in time and start over from square one, avoid a lot of the mistakes that I obviously made and had to learn from, this is how I would do it. So I just, I made a little course, and it literally is how I would do it if I had to start all over from square one. So if people are serious and they do want to learn that, now I'm like, okay, I did actually take the time to create a roadmap if you really are serious about wanting to learn and get into it. That's
Yeah.
how that came to be.
Yeah. Well, I started our investment network. Maybe it was like group therapy, to be honest with you. Right? I was like, okay, I'd been going to all of these RIAs, all these real estate investment associations. And I was always like, they give you just enough information to be dangerous. And there was all these gaps. There was all these gaps. I always had all these questions, right? And once 6, 7 years into my journey, I was like, I feel like I understand the roadmap now. And if I was going to start like from square one, just like you said, what would be the first thing I'd have to know? And then I created, kind of like that first training lesson on that. And then I was like, okay, what would the second thing have to be? And then I created the second training lesson. What would be the third thing? And what I did was I created a curriculum. Now, this isn't like high-end coaching. This is just like a curriculum for my investment group, so that if somebody came in at the beginning of the year and they stayed for all 12 meetings, right, one meeting a month, they would understand the full life cycle of a real estate investor's life. And that became like our basic framework.
Awesome.
Now, of course, there's like more deep diving in each one of those meeting topics that people would have to get to know. But at least that gave somebody like, this is how the dots are connected in this game.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, that's very similar to what I did also. And so far it's been great. However, I will say, just like every line of business, there you learn things. And so I think it's a great course, and it's for like the really motivated self-starter. Perfect. But I guess what I've realized now is that a lot of people, I built it this way intentionally just because I have 2 kids and a lot of stuff going on. So I built it to be a more go at your own pace, less hands-on. But I think what I've realized from doing it for like almost a year now is that a lot of people want more hands-on hand-holding.
Yeah, what they want is, because we have ours, it's called the income flip, right? We did an 8-week course on the game of real estate investing. We called it the income flip, right? Masterclass. And what we do is we built it on a Kajabi. And so it was like one module every day, 6 days a week. And then on Monday, I'd hold a group session for everybody that was in the course to answer questions about the week that they just watched, right? Like they needed that to cement kind of the learning.
That is, oh my gosh, that's literally what I'm transitioning it to now, because I realize I'm like, yes, there are some people that can just get it. But most people do want the accountability factor. They want they signed up with you for a reason, right? They want you to be part of it, not just on the video. So
100%. Yeah, they connect with you and they want a piece of you.
Yes.
Right. Now, what's interesting, the analogy I always give when it comes to like, even in my world I own real estate teams, right? And when you go into a brokerage is similar to like getting a gym membership. There's all of these pieces of equipment in the gym. There's lots of different ways to work out. There's lots of different programs that are out there. But joining a team is like getting a personal accountability coach to show you how to do training one particular way, right? Cool. And once people understand like, oh yeah, I need that type of coaching and training, and I believe in that type of coaching and training, then that's how people can pick teams, right? Because every team has its own flavor. Some teams are based on working with high-end luxury, and others are working with, like me, investors and builders and developers. Like, okay, there's a way to do that playbook in the world of agenting versus being the neighborhood expert. That's different, right? It's a different playbook. And I know all those playbooks, but this is the one that I choose to really put my time and attention to.
That is very cool.
So for you, it's the same thing. Hey, this is the way that I am building this out, and now you've got to create office hours for people to come in and
Exactly.
and participate in community.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I'm
Yes.
excited. Well, if people want to find you online and learn more about your course and learn more about you, like, where do they go?
So you can follow me on all social media. You can find me at Maura McGraw pretty much on all social media. And then my company is called Duratus Properties. You can follow our company and see our flips and everything that we have going on. And then we have our Duratus Academy. That's where we have our digital course that I talked about. If you are interested, you want to jump in and follow my little roadmap, I would love you to do it. You can find that at duratusacademy.com.
What does Duratus mean?
Great
That's a
question. It is Duratus is a Latin word that means to endure. And it's to me it's important. So endurance is one of the Marine Corps leadership principles, and I think that it's also just a really important an important idea for success in business. You have, especially real estate investing, because the real estate investing is the long game. You have to come into it with a long-term mindset, be prepared to endure a lot, like I've talked about. But I think if you do endure and persevere, you will succeed. You'll learn from any setbacks and you will succeed as long as you stick with it. So that's where the name Duratus comes from.
I love that. I love that. I want to give you some shine, by the way, because I watched your video, kind of like your explainer video in the beginning, and I really liked it. I felt a connection. I was like, this is a real person, right? This is a real person talking about a journey, saying this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is a process, and it's going to take you a decade or two to build something. And it's so rare that people say that, because that's the truth, right? This is like building anything. You know, it's one step at a time, one brick at a time, and there's so much stuff out there, like, the fast cars and the get rich fast and all that stuff. It's just slimy, horrible.
I know. Oh, well, thank you for saying that. And I know it's a pet peeve of mine. I hate when people say that, or they tell people this, that it's like a get rich quick, because I think it does such a disservice to people, because it's like, if they get in and they're not getting rich immediately, they think that they're doing
failing.
Something wrong.
That's right, which is totally wrong.
It's so demoralizing to people. And it's just not I don't think it's the right mindset at all that you have to go into it with.
Well, an analogy is, you're not an Olympic athlete day one or even year one, and it'll take you 5, 6, 7, 8 years
Exactly.
just to get into the game at a high level. And some people might take 10 years or 20 years.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, this is the infinite game. There is no ending, right?
Yes.
You're constantly growing on this journey. And so enjoy the ride, play the game, liberate yourself from, your expenses in your job, really create more leveraged income. I almost don't like the word passive income. I like highly leveraged income. Some income is more leveraged than other income.
That's a great way to say it.
Yeah, it's on the spectrum of passive income, there's lots of different shades and colors of that, right? But you're building highly leveraged income. Those 52 houses are highly leveraged income. Those notes that you have, highly leveraged income. So congratulations on your success, Maura. And I know that you're just getting started on this journey, because it's only 6, 7 years in, but like, imagine where you're going to be with this thinking 30 years from now. It's crazy.
God willing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that is and I will say it's great. Like, it is, I honestly enjoy what I do every day. Like, it's easy to get up and go to work because it's enjoyable. You're always learning something new, no matter how long you've been in. Like, I'm sure you've talked to people who've been in for 50 years and they're still learning. And so I think it's really cool. It's an awesome business to be in, and let's hope in another 6 to 10 years, I hope that I've found my answer to the commercial pivot.
Well, I think just to kind of end on this note, right? When I first started, maybe like many listeners on here, you think you're building something because you want to retire. Like you've got this weird ideal that like I want to be out of the game, right? But then you look at people like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, and you're like, they could have they could have exited that game decades ago, but they continued to be in it because they enjoyed the game, and it became more about being able to play the game together. I know Charlie passed, but like they enjoyed doing this together. So it's just enjoying this piece. You'll pivot, you'll figure out which is the right commercial piece for you, right? Um, It'll probably be storage. No, I'm just making. I don't know.
Land or storage.
Because you got PTSD from
Yeah.
the multis, but whatever it is, you're just going to enjoy it, right? And
Yes.
it's like real life Monopoly. So for those listening, go play real life Monopoly. Maura, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being part of the Income Flip.
Thank you so much, Rob. This was such a great conversation.
Thank you.